The first access to all resource must be to the minorities, particularly to the Muslim minorities. You should not say such things. How can the nation's resource belong to anybody? I'm saying it's shocking in a democratic country, which is a secular nation. Actually, there is a survey in India which shows, in many of the states, when they had the weakest chief minister, that state does very well. When I was first at the Economic Forum, I tried to change this terminology. People were referring to India as an emerging market. I said, don't call us a marketplace, we're people. If you see a human being as a human being and you see how to contribute to that human being's life, that human being will become yours in many ways.
I mean, you think this way, and you have reached a mystical level where you can approach these things in a humane way. But the fact remains that the bulk of the global wealth is in the hands of a handful of people. I mean, just in a session previously to this one, they spoke about 70% of India's wealth is in the hands of 10% of the people here. 50% of the country's wealth is in the hands of 1%. So it's all good and well to ask big business to be more inclusive and be more humane in their approach, but it's actually on the grassroots level, it's not necessarily happening.
So when they say wealth, they are thinking in terms of stocks and shares and stuff. That's fine. You don't expect everybody in the country to own that, all right? The important thing is, everybody in the country and in the world should be able to fulfill their fundamental needs and their well-being. If we see how to facilitate this, instead of seeing them as marketplace, if you see them as human beings and see how to facilitate this, instead of manufacturing what you want and try to sell it to them, if you manufacture what they want, what they need in their lives, it would become very inclusive. We prepared an elaborate system of how this could be done for a variety of industries. Has it become more inclusive than before in the last 10–12 years? I would say yes, to some extent, not to the extent that we would want, but definitely it's a little more inclusive. And you can see this just now. I've been on a 30-day ride across the country. I've been driving from Kanyakumari to the foothills of Himalayas. As I see India, I've done this many times earlier on a motorcycle, later on driving around. The last time I did was about 8–9 years ago. 9 years ago, how India was. 9 years ago, what people's condition was. What it is today is phenomenally different. At least 80% of the roads that I drove on this time is as good as anywhere in the world, really. Only one thing is, the road is good, once in a way an odd guy is coming on the wrong side. I think he's an American guy.
I mean, you're right, and we often report, internationally about India's growing middle class and that people are becoming more affluent. But equally, do you think in a technological age, it's also creating resentment in this country as well, where you can see that someone has the latest iPhone, for example, or they have the best job, they have more access to information now, that perhaps it's creating more of a resentment, especially with this current generation?
The resentment could be there in certain segments of society or in certain people. Individual people will be resentful for so many things. Within a family of 4 or 5, one person will be resentful about somebody else within the family. So unfortunately, human beings are still like that. But I don't believe your resentment is rising, aspirations are rising. I don't think resentment is rising. It is just that, as we were talking, every small thing is reported, every small thing comes into your sitting room, so it looks like everything is going up. But believe me, the world is more peaceful than it ever was in the history of humanity. And the number of people, the populations have multiplied, but still our violence is not multiplied. Still there are things which must end, that's a different matter. But today, if 10 people die somewhere, the blood pours into our sitting room because of you.
It's true. We do, I mean, because people have access to so much information, death and destruction has always existed. In fact, less so now, I would say, but because we are able to instantaneously give people that information, they see it immediately.
At the same time, there are so many tools or technologies to express your resentment. The moment you feel something, immediately you're on the Facebook. If it was if it was 25 years ago, by the time you walked home, it would be gone. But before you go home, you already texted 1,000 people and they said so many things, and by the time you go home, this resentment is multiplied into 10,000 people. So, which was not so earlier. You got upset about something, you had physical activity to do. By the time you walked home or reached your workplace, normally it would be gone. But today you try to express it. But at the same time, what I see is, I'm seeing one thing among the kids. Because they're so exposed to so many things which we were not exposed to when we were children, there's a kind of a wisdom about them also. They're able to take these things with a certain kind of a dispassion about a lot of things. We grew up at a time where always people around me and myself, we were always talking about a revolution, the times of Che, you know. But not today. Today people are talking about their aspirations. They're not thinking of large-scale disruption of present situations to achieve something. They're seeing how to exploit the present situation to fulfill their aspirations. In our time, we did not think of our own self-aspirations. We thought everything, the whole system has to change, this has to happen, that has to happen. I see from that hot-headedness that we were as youth, today I think they're a little cool, and I think the terminology has changed. See, when we were young, if something was really good, we said, oh, it's hot. Now they're saying it's cool.
But, I mean, we are seeing fractures globally in the international community. I mean, there's been so much discussion around the election of Donald Trump, you know, why that happened. With Brexit in the UK, why that's happening. With the migrant crisis, with people being pushed out of their homes and communities, and conversations about far-right movements in Europe. Do you think attitudes globally are hardening? You talk about the revolution of your time and people are more cool now. But from the experiences that I have reporting in these places, that I sense that attitudes are hardening and people are identifying more now. There's more sense of identity politics.
I think we have, in the last couple of decades, we have overdone this political correctness too much. People are sick of it. Trying to be right about everything, not looking at what people's needs are, but too much political correctness. Every word that you say, you have to say it in a certain way. This has led to a certain level of frustration, particularly in the United States. Now, they're trying to protect their rights because they feel threatened. The majority communities in various nations are feeling little uncomfortable because they feel slowly it is being taken over. Whether it's real or it's just perceptional, it doesn't matter. But this feeling is strong. It is strong in India also. Because constantly talking minoritism, people feel uncomfortable. What's going to happen to us? So, we must understand this. Minorities have always stuck together. And because of this, politicians have played these games because minority votes are the only things which come en masse. Majority votes will never come en masse. So they always focused on them, gave them better things, to such a point, I must tell you this is shocking, but it happened in this country. Our former Prime Minister said, the first access to all resource must be to the minorities, particularly to the Muslim minorities. you should not say such things. Even if you intend, you should not say such things.
Why did you find that shocking?
How can the nation's resource belong to anybody? Even if you say it must belong to majority, it will be shocking for me. I'm not saying it is shocking because he pointed at a particular community. I'm saying it's shocking in a democratic country, which is a secular nation, that you think it should belong to one particular segment of people is wrong, whether it's majority or minority. So when you make these kind of statements, postures and positions get hardened by other people to protect their own interests. What is economic will take on a religious hue altogether. It's essentially an economic issue, but it will take on a religious tinge. Once it takes on a religious tinge, everything becomes uncontrollable.
Do you think that's a result of a lack of leadership? Do we have a global lack of leadership at the moment?
There is lack of leadership in a certain way, but at the same time, we need those kind of leaders only when we are in crisis. Rest of the time, we just need a CEO to manage the nation. Only when you have to lift a nation out of some pit, then you need that kind of an inspiring leader. Rest of the time, you don't really need that kind of leader. A manager is good enough. Actually, there is a survey in India which shows that in many of the states, when they had the weakest chief minister, that state does very well in economically,
Why is that?
Because he doesn't know how to meddle with everything.